Tom gets mad at Brandi and I and tells us, you go to timeout. So what happens when we are on timeout?
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
Well, it's a place there shouldn't be abuse. Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims Jesus.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
Like, just so funny. Like, there's a lot of dynamics to this, but like, I don't know who started, if it was you or Brandi. I just know that in the moment, in the timeline, like while this was going on, when it was described to me in real time, the word timeout was used. Like, and I know that Brandi's the one who told me, because I know it wasn't you, so I don't know, between you two, when you guys were talking about what happened to you, I don't know where that phrase came from, but the first time that I was told what had happened, like, she used the word, we were put in timeout.
So, to be fair, I was not in the room when she was put on timeout. I was only, like, he put us on timeout individually.
Okay.
Like, we had our meetings with Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
And like, we were together with Charlotte, and that's when she forbid us from being friends, right? And she's like, I think you guys should not be friends anymore.
Yeah.
And then we individually had to meet with Tom.
Okay.
Individually. And so when I met with Tom, he used the exact phrase, you are forbidden from being friends with Brandi.
Wow.
Forbidden. Your families can't hang out, you know, you're done. Your friendship is done. And then he said, and you are done in children's ministry. We will find something else for you to do to fill your time.
Wow.
And so he didn't use the phrase timeout, but it's one of those, like we've said through this whole podcast, like, you have to find humor and laugh in it. Otherwise you're going to get depressed and cry. Yeah. And so that was like, I felt like it was like our funny way of being like, well, we're put on timeout, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It was satire. We're on timeout. Because remember when I'm like, so what happened? Like, Brandi's like, we got put on timeout.
Yeah.
Like,
we're in timeout.
That's how it was relayed to me.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, what do you do when your pastor forbids you from being friends with your best friend and you are on timeout? Like, what do you do? So keep in mind, I'm hired on in the office. I am working as Tom's assistant, right? But then I can't be his assistant anymore because people are annoyed that they have to go through me, right? And so it shifts that I am the media person. Anything we need for media, that is my job, right? And every so often he would say random things. Like, he would be like, well, that's why we hired Amanda in the office, like in like a meeting or from stage in the sanctuary and like during a sermon. And I'm like, what is my job? Like, what did he just say? Like, and I became the like if a thought popped into his head, I became the person to now have to execute it. So Tom is famous for, in the middle of a sermon, he'll be like, everyone needs to be committed to this, like whatever the topic of the sermon was. So like forgiveness, right? And if you're struggling to forgive someone and you need help with that, like write a F on your communication card and Amanda will make sure I get that. So then that became the like, because he would say it in the moment and then I would give him like, okay, here's a list of people. They wrote F's on their communication card. Here you go. And he's like, well, what is this for? I don't know. You told people to write F's on the communication card. Well, what was that? I didn't say that. And so then I'd have to go back and like listen to the sermon and be like, you said it was for this. Oh, I'm not doing that. So then it makes it look like I'm not giving him the information. So then I had to start paying attention more in this, because I got to the point where I would tune him out.
Yeah.
During the sermons, because
what
keep in mind, I'm getting the live show the
Right.
Tuesday before. So whatever the sermon is about that Sunday, the Tuesday before, at like quote unquote prayer. So if it was on forgiveness, that means he felt like someone probably wasn't forgiving him. And so we get to listen to a rant on the Tuesday before about forgiveness and everything like that. So then by the time we get to Sunday, I'm like, you're super mad and you're screaming and you're angry about this on Tuesday. And then you stand on stage on Sunday and you present it in this like loving, compassionate way. And the way his voice changes is like, it's almost creepy. Like how his normal in the office voice was not the voice you got from stage. And I mean, we all have like a customer service voice to an extent, right? Or like working in the school, you have your teacher voice, and then and I've even caught myself, because now I work with such a wide range of like age groups. I have my like little kid teacher voice and then like my middle school teacher voice. But it was like the emotion and the tone behind it was so different, because like in the office, it was just so angry. And then and then he would say stuff that I'm like, you don't feel that way. Like from stage, he would say things and I was like, that's not what you believe. Like, that's not what you just said on Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, ladies and gentlemen, this is your pastor. Like, Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah. And so I stopped paying attention. And so I'm like, I have to actually listen now, because you're causing more work for me by having to then go back and listen to what you said. You're the one who said it. So then I would start giving him a list. People who are struggling with forgiveness. You said in the sermon that you were going to do this. And so when I would give it to him on the list, so then it almost wasn't like I was telling him, well, you said you'd do this, because if I gave it to him on a piece of paper, then it was fine. If my words didn't say it, then he was more willing to follow through.
Yeah.
Because then it wasn't like I wasn't telling him. It was like he was getting a memo of what he said. And it was almost like he was telling himself.
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
Oh, no, that makes total sense. Like, this guy has to be handled with kid gloves, and you were the handler. Like, we all get it. We definitely, like, the picture, you've done such a great job, like, just painting this picture of, like, who this pastor is, and, like, the nuances and the narcissism and the like, the reality, like, even the things that I knew, the picture that I now have in my mind because of like the more intimate details of like your working relationship with this person. Like, we started this podcast and it was complete satire, and I was joking about being in a cult. But if I've learned anything in the last year, of recording this podcast is we were
Oh, we
really
were in a cult.
A cult, like with a cult leader, and the cult
Yes.
leader was Tom. Like you're being forbidden from having friends. You're being forbidden from like
Yeah. So I'm doing things like that. But I'm also doing children's ministry. And so I am told you're done with children's ministry, right? And I remember the first Sunday I didn't do children's ministry. I was in the lobby and I was kind of like, I felt lost. Like I didn't have a purpose on a Sunday morning. And so I felt very lost. And so I was standing at the information desk and it was like Justin and the beer ministry couple and this older gentleman who like always like stood behind the information desk, right? And the older guy asked me, well, like, aren't you supposed to be in class right now? Because like the kids are showing up and stuff, right? And I said, well, no, my services are no longer needed in children's ministry. And the beer ministry wife laughed and walked away. And so that's what really leads me to think that she was, you know, one of those people that was going to Charlotte and Tom and saying things because it was like that the attitude I got from her was like, yeah, I won.
Yeah.
Suck it, you know? And I talked to Brandi about it later and she's like, she wouldn't even talk to me. And I was like, yeah, there's something there, right? And so that relationship was never the same ever again with the beer ministry wife. And so I can't do children's anymore. And I mean, this is a big time of year. Like I was doing the scheduling, I was doing all that. So like I'm having to, on the down low, teach Brandi how to do it because I had been doing it this whole time. And so now I'm not allowed to. She has to do it, even though her and Charlotte are kind of co-leading together, right? I can't touch it anymore. And so I have to teach her how to do it. But then in the office, like...
Because, like, let's be clear. Like, Charlotte isn't going to do... Like, she doesn't want it. This is a burden.
Yeah.
Like,
no, she doesn't want
like
children.
When you ground your kids and then, like, they're stuck inside with you and you're like...
Yeah. Then you're like, crap. Yeah. I just punished myself. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so... that's kind of how it was, is I feel like Tom laid down, like Charlotte was mad and Charlotte was just like, you guys can't be friends anymore, right? Tom was the one who took stuff away. Mm-hmm. And so then Charlotte was stuck with
and
like,
she's the one who asked me, well, Charlotte will just do it. Charlotte will do it. Charlotte will do it. And she's like,
she didn't want to. Yeah,
no.
Exactly. And because there's always this air of like, well, Tom and Charlotte did their time. They don't have to help in children's because Tom and Charlotte did their time back at the Baptist church. Mm-hmm. Charlotte led children's right when we first started Come As You Are. Now, like she's done her time, right? And so she is not a fan, but, you know, I am not allowed to be anywhere near children's ministry.
But that's why Brandi was still allowed to co-lead.
Yes.
In children's, is because Charlotte wasn't going to take it all on her own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I I have like free time in the office, right? Like you just took a big chunk of what I'm spending my time in the office doing. So, you know, I kind of go to Lori, the office lady, and I'm like, so, you know, like, do you need help with anything? Whatever. And through our conversations, you know, because keep in mind, we just built this new wing earlier in the year and, you know, we repainted all the classrooms and she's like, I would love to like repaint here in the office, like just kind of freshen it up a little bit. Right. And you get that way, right? Like you sit in the same room all day, every day, all this stuff, right? This is also the time where Pastor O'Reliable, he had been working a day job, right? He wasn't like the pastor who had office hours, whatever. He essentially, like, Pastor O'Reliable's title was very much like, it was just a title. And then like he was the guy, like if you got sick or you had someone in the hospital, he would come and visit you. And that's about it, right? And so it's a big deal because Pastor O'Reliable is retiring from his day job. And he is going to start holding office hours.
And he was the communion pastor. Like communion.
He would lead communion. Yeah.
I was saying, visit people in the hospital, lead communion. That was his job as a pastor.
Yeah. And he always seemed like so uncomfortable, like talking in the microphone, even when like he led communion, like you could tell he did not want to like talk in the microphone. And like I always said, like he's a great one-on-one pastor, but like in front of he's just not a group pastor, right?
Yeah.
And so he is going to start, we were told he was going to start having normal office hours and he was going to like be counseling people and all of this, right? So the way the office was set up, like there were 3 bedrooms when it was an old farmhouse, right? So those 3 bedrooms, it's like down a hallway, and like at the end of the hallway, you could go left or right or straight, right? So to the left was Lori's office, where she did all the finance and everything. To the right was Tom's office. And then if you went straight, that was just the back office. So when Pastor O'Reliable would come in and he would have meetings with people, he would go back there. Well, the problem was that's also where Pastor Younggun had his office. That's where the children's ministry, the youth ministry, like that was just kind of...
it was like a shared office. Like they all had computers and they had a little workspace.
There was like a computer back there that was known as like the ministry computer. So anyone doing ministry could go back there and work on that computer, right? Mm-hmm. And so the problem was that, you know, you come into the office to do something. Well, Pastor O'Reliable's meeting with someone or counseling someone, and then you're like, you can't go in there. And so then it became a problem. So Lori and I are talking, and we come up with this plan to rearrange the office. We start off, Tom is mad because Amanda has to paint stuff, right? And so Lori and I paint the office. And like Tom, I think at that point, it was like I had been put on timeout. And so I was almost getting like the silent treatment from him in a way. Like when it was coming to like stuff that I wanted to do, like it was like he was ignoring me. And he would come to me and he'd be like, you need to do this or you need to do that. But it was very like short conversations. It was very clear. It was like, Dad's mad and he's not talking to you kind of feeling, right? So I kind of had like some rebellious teenager. I was like, well, Dad's already mad. Like, might as well paint the office. Like, you know, like... That's kind of how I was like, well, like, what's he gonna do? Be mad? Put me on timeout? So already there. And Tom will not fire people.
Right.
He will not fire people. He will bully you into quitting, but he will not fire people. So I'm like, he's not gonna fire me. Like, he might be mean to me, but like how much more mean to me can he be? He's already screamed at me and told me I can't be friends with my best friend and taken ministry away from me. So like, how much more mean can he be to me, really? And he'll get over it. It'll be fine. So we paint like the front desk area, my little desk area. We kind of paint that. So it's just like a little alcove. And it's not like we're painting like crazy colors, right? Like, all the walls were like white and beige, and we painted the little alcove like millennial gray, right? Like, and then I had like painted some signs like with the Come As You Are logo on them, and like I made it So when you walked in, like it looked like, you know, I had like our occupancy certificates hung up, but then I also had like some things that it was almost like behind that desk, it almost became like a display, right? Of like, this is who we are. So when you walked in, like you had a first impression. And then directly across from there was like a wall, and I painted like this cross with like these like vines kind of on it. And Tom liked that because it made him think of like the verses from John that like we all had to learn for Master Life, like I am the vine, you are the branches. So he was down with that. And then in the living room, like where we would have meetings and stuff, I painted Tom's favorite verse. I painted in huge, like, 18-inch letters on the wall, deny yourself, pick up your cross, follow him. And I painted it on the wall, and Tom loved it. He loved it. And so because Tom loved that, Lori and I pitch him the idea of switching offices. That Lori would move into because like that general use back office was by far the biggest room, right? It was like almost twice the size of the other rooms. And so we pitch him the idea that back there, you keep the 2 computers, right? And then on the other side, it was kind of like a big open space. Lori bought herself, the church didn't buy it. Lori bought herself a desk, and we kind of put it in the corner. Tom's biggest thing was like, well, she's doing finances. People can't see the finance stuff. So we situated her so you can't see what she's working on, right? Like her back is to the wall, and
like when she'd walk in, she'd be facing you.
Yes.
Facing the door.
And she could see down the hallway, see people. So if someone was coming, she had time to like cover stuff up or whatever. Yeah. And then over to the side, there was like a built-in like U-shaped desk all the way around the other half of the room. And we put computers there, right? So we had workstations. And so it was like, that's what we're going to do. And so this is how we're going to
and then Pastor Overlyle
rearrange this. Yeah.
Door,
and then, so then that other room would become the associate pastor office. So it could be Old Reliable, it could be Young Gun, right? And they could use that office. They didn't have to worry about, people interrupting them. That was their space. Pastor Old Reliable was very, very appreciative. Tom was not a fan, but it was also like, we were like, we'll just, it's fine. And you don't have to help. We don't have to ask the men for help. Like me and Lori are in there pushing desks and moving stuff ourselves. Right. And so we did it all by ourselves. We got the dolly, and we moved, like she had these big file cabinets full of papers, like right heavy as hell. And we get them on the dolly, and we, push them, move them to the back, move to the other office. And like, we did it all ourselves. Right. Like brute, like, just stubborn woman strength, right? Because we don't need no man to help us. We got this. And so we do all of it. And so Tom was like, well, like, whatever. So he was actually kind of happy with it, right? And so we kind of rearranged the office a little bit. And then keep in mind, this whole time, all this time, like we're on timeout, we get yelled at by Tom, all of this stuff is going on. Young Gun is gone. Young Gun is, he's off at like basic training and doing like chaplain training and stuff for the military, right? So he's gone this whole time. He has no idea what is going on. And then for Brandi, she is put on timeout, and Tom yells when she goes in and talks to Tom individually. Tom yells at her and tells her she has to come and sit in his office next to him and learn how to be a leader from him. You come, you sit here, I will teach you how to be a leader, right? So she shows up to the office, first day of timeout, to come and learn from Tom how to be a leader. And Tom is like, what are you doing here? And she's like, you told me and he's like, I never said that. She's like, yeah, you did. Like, so then Tom was like, well, crap. I have to find something for her to do, because Tom is notorious for, in the moment when he's mad or emotional, he will just out of pure hysterics say something, and then he doesn't remember he said it. And so then when you then go back, like, I remember one time as a youth leader, he's so mad and like, you have to run everything by me and I need to know what's going on and all of this. So then I started sending him like email updates and like being like, this is what we're doing. He's like, why do you have to tell me all this stuff? Why can't you just do your job as the youth leader? You don't need my permission. And I'm like, well, you told me I did. Yeah. I never said that. So he says things in the moment, almost like as a like punishment to you and like to put you in your place, and like he is the leader and you're just this lowly, stupid person who couldn't possibly hear from God, and you need Tom's divine intervention to do what God asks you to do, and then when it came down to it, he was annoyed that you were there bugging him.
Yeah, but that's such an interesting point, because I definitely feel like you only heard from God if it aligned with Tom's agenda. If it didn't align with Tom's agenda, then he would argue you to the death that it wasn't God.
Yeah, exactly. And then he was like annoyed because he would tell you, you can't hear from God, and then I'll teach you how to do that. Well, then he was annoyed that he had to teach you something. Yeah. Because when it comes down to it, Tom does not like people.
No.
At all.
No, but this was his calling, to pastor.
Yes.
I'm the shepherd of the flock, but I don't like the sheep. I can't stand sheep, but I want to live outdoors and shepherd them.
No, exactly. Exactly. And so, yeah. Tom is like, if you like, I'm a shepherd. Like, ew, gross. Sheep stink. They poop? Yuck. I have to be outside? This isn't fun.
Yeah, like, no, and I mean, like, 100%. 100%. That is.
And then God comes down and he's like, look, I'm a shepherd. Look how great I'm doing. So Tom is mad that Brandi's in there doing what he told her to do. So he has to find something for Brandi to do, right? Because he's given Charlotte, like, you have to make sure Brandi's doing children's and make sure she's doing that. Well, her and I are doing that together on the DL, and I'm giving her everything. So, like, it's looking like she's thriving, right? And so Charlotte's like, she's got this. She doesn't need me. And so very quickly, Charlotte kind of like, steps out of children's at this point.
Hold on. Like, this is a great place to really, like, just lay this foundation of you and Brandi are friends and you are thriving and working very successfully together. They then separate you, and because of whatever this like long-standing beef with you is, they like strip you of everything. But they still allow Brandi, who in their minds, and this is not an insult to Brandi in any way, shape, or form, but who in their minds is this completely competent, well-adjusted, able to manage all these things, successful, like running the show kind of gal, right? But behind the scenes, Brandi is an ADHD, distracted, bumbling mess, and she would tell you that herself, right? And I say this as her ADHD friend, right? And the person who is doing all of the organizing, the scheduling, the making it all happen person is you.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, and I
be
do.
very clear that when they took you away, like, let's just say in like, let's just have a make-believe world really quick. Like, if you all had listened and stopped talking and stopped associating with each other and did exactly what they wanted, Brandi would have fallen apart. Like,
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts. And like I said, she would tell you that. Like, the whole thing would have just come crashing down, and it would have been a blubbering mess. And then Charlotte would have had to pick up all of these pieces.
Well, and likewise, the same with me, because her and I had this like very, like, it was a very unhealthy, like, codependent relationship that we had as friends. And I do, like, it's not like I had all this stuff taken away from me and Brandi just was yelled at by Tom. Like, he said horrible things to her that devastated her.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
she was
and
convinced.
She legitimately was banished from doing anything.
Yeah, like, she was broken. And I mean, the stuff he said to her was just so messed up that just, I mean, she was convinced like every woman in the church didn't want to do ministry with her and everyone hated her. Like, I mean, he tore her down as a person, like, just ruined her, right? And but it was almost like we were replaying the, like, Amanda and the children's ministry director, right? Of like Tom and Charlotte fighting over their people.
Yeah.
And so back then I was
a script.
Yeah, I was Charlotte's and the children's director was Tom's person, right? Well, now it's shifted and I'm Tom's and Brandi is Charlotte's.
Mm-hmm.
And so the harsh, just awful, devastate you to your core stuff, Tom saved for Brandi, because at the end of the day, I was his. Yeah. And he wanted to win the fight between him and his wife. Right. Like, and that's what it came down to. So, I mean, like, yes, I had a lot of ministry stuff taken away from me. Brandi was initially had everything taken away from her, but then like Tom and Charlotte were like, well, and like Tom even told her like, well, because at first he was like, you know, you're not doing anything and you have to, and I'm giving everything to Charlotte and you have to come learn from me. But then very quickly it was like, well, we know that if we don't let you hold babies, you're going to be devastated, because, and that was Tom's thing of like, because he knew Brandi had multiple miscarriages. Like, she has shared that on the podcast, you know, when she was still with us and all of this. So he always used that as like well, that's why Brandi has to be in children's and Brandi has to hold the babies, because it's fulfilling this weird motherly need that, she lost babies, so we have to let her hold babies. Like, a very toxic, misogynistic way of looking at it.
Well, and
if you would have
picture that she's mentally unstable.
Yes. And so like that was Tom's like, well, we know you're going to go like batshit crazy if we don't let you hold babies, and it's just going to devastate you. So like, we'll let you hold babies. And so like on Sunday mornings, Brandi could like do check-in and stuff with children's ministry and make sure things were getting going, but then she had to come sit in service, and it was like he had to physically see her sitting, right? And then she wasn't allowed in a room to help at all. If anything went wrong, Charlotte would go handle it, right? But on Thursday nights, well, we'll let you do Thursday night children's ministry because we know we have to let you hold babies.
Yeah.
So
and like, she has some amazing talents. Like, it's not the administrative organizing side, but her talents for the things that she can do when she is managing and managing situations and making things happen. Like, I feel like those talents were very invaluable to Charlotte
Yeah.
specifically. And so I feel like
Yeah.
they
Brandy
were
was
like,
very
you're
good.
in timeout, but we still need you to fulfill these things for us. So
Yeah. Brandy was very good at, it is chaos. How do we power through and make the chaos look pretty?
yeah.
Like Brandy thrived in that, right?
Mhm.
And so I don't think Tom and Charlotte realized how chaotic a Sunday morning children's ministry was, because like the whole place was chaotic. Like everything was like behind, like we did a really good job of like essentially every Sunday we would just polish a turd and throw it on stage. Like, you know, behind the scenes, the worship team is fighting with each other, and, you know, children's ministry, people aren't happy and people aren't showing up or people are late, and, you know, and there's fighting, and we have like the old ladies from the refreshment team coming and screaming at teachers, like, don't let your kids eat all the snacks. And we're like, they're not like, they are with their parents when they're doing that. Like, you can't yell at us, like, go talk to their parents. And like, you know, just no one loved serving. No one was happy serving, but we made it seem like it was the joy of our life.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And it was exhausting every single Sunday. And I don't think Tom and Charlotte realized that. And so they needed Brandi to come in and kind of like polish that children's side up, you know, and make it look good on a Sunday morning to parents. And so they let her on Thursday nights, and then slowly, you know, Charlotte starts giving her stuff back because Charlotte doesn't want to do it, you know. But they need Brandi to do something. They need a punishment for Brandi. And her punishment was you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I do think that it's a very good place to point out that you and Brandi were friends, but and you know me and I know you. I mean, we've gone to church now for a few years together. I've talked to Brandi in regards to planning. Actually, I would say that your relationship with me and Brandi's relationship with me at this point, individually and collectively, is all ministry based.
Yeah.
We are people who go to church together. Sometimes we serve together, but not enough but there's that realization that we had of we were being kept apart. Like that has worked. And so I don't get involved in your personal circle. You're not involved in my personal circle. Brandi and I only talk at meetings, like, or in Bible studies. Like there is we don't call it, like at this point, the three of us as a group are not friends.
Yeah.
And we have no relationship to each other except for we go to church together and we sometimes serve. And I just think that that's a very valid point to just point out at this time. And that, so we had decided to do Christmas play, and, you know, we're like knee deep. Like for me, I'm like 3 months in, but like the whole church is like a month and a half, 2 months. like this is full steam ahead. We're rocking and rolling, and I am given help. Like this was a gift to me. To me, Brandi was a gift. They gifted me Brandi. Your Christmas present, Brandi. And her punishment, Melissa. and I remember when she first came over, and it was like, hey, like she was not like, hey, I'm here to help. What, like in her mind, nothing about doing a play. Like this was not on her radar at all. She's like,
she has no experience in theater whatsoever.
I have no idea how to do a play. I have no idea what's going on. I don't really know you, but they've sent me to you. And it was like, hi, I'm here to help you. And it really was this air of, she was like, yeah, I'm in timeout, so I have to help you. There wasn't this, oh my gosh, Melissa, I love theater and I want to come help you. Tell me what can I do? I just want to help you so much. No, it wasn't like that. It was, I'm in timeout and I have been sent. Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to enjoy any moment. Like there was no air of joy in her coming to me. And I had a little confusion, but I was like, but I was happy because I was like, heck yeah. I was, to me, because she filled in my mind, she's filling the one thing that is I would say would be like, if I was going to hire somebody to help me put on a play, this is the role that this person this is the person I would hire, my personal assistant. Like, I'm going to task you with all of the things that I know need to be done, but that I'm not going to go do.
Yeah. And you don't have the bandwidth to find someone to go do it.
Right.
You need to give one person a list and say, here's what I need. Can you figure it out? Yeah.
Yes. And so what's really funny about that is it's not that I knew that I needed that person before that. Because at the end of the day, I would have killed myself to do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But if I were to ever direct a play ever again in my life, I would hire a Brandi. Because I was like, I need a personal assistant. That's what needs to happen. And so, but I do remember in the moment it being a very I think confused is really about the only word.
Yeah.
You kind of went, but it was all okay. And I think this is another place to point out how jacked up is this. That two adults are having a conversation in a church, and it's okay that the adult is like, I'm being punished by the pastor.
Yeah.
And we were all okay with that.
And we're like, oh yeah, been there. Sorry. Okay, let's get you through this. Yeah.
Effed up is it that we didn't bat an eye that that's the way that this organization was run by this one person?
Yeah.
This pastor, it was okay to be punished. It was okay to be told where and what you could do, and didn't bat an eye. It's like siblings. Oh yeah, dad's mad. Yep, dad got mad at me last week. Where it's messed up. How messed up is that was not a red flag? Nobody questioned it. Nobody thought it was weird that a grown adult was being told to sit down and shut up and not do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that was okay tells you that even the stuff we didn't cover up in this podcast up until this point was messed up. And it all led to being conditioned and groomed into that this is how you do church.
And the people who were asking questions, why are you not in children's anymore? What is going on? And I would just be like, well, it's really healthy to let other people lead, and you can't do the same thing for too long. And, if I just stayed there, I know my personality is too much, and I know I am too much. And some people, I have a very off-putting personality. So there's some people who really want to be involved with children's, and, I'm a hindrance to them.
Yeah. And nobody's arguing with you because they were told that same narrative about you.
Yeah. And so it's just, this is healthier this way, and it's fine. And, God has led me somewhere else, even though God didn't lead me anywhere. Tom said,
yeah,
don't touch it.
No, because I'll say, getting to know you personally, there's nothing about you that feeds that narrative. When you take the narrative away, if that makes sense. It took me a long time, and actually thinking about it, to realize that you're not the person that I was told you were.
And likewise. Yeah.
You know?
Same with you.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh, well, I'm hard to deal with. And nobody's going, no, you're not. Like, I don't have a hard time dealing with you. Nobody is doing that. They're all just like, yeah, you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've been fed this story about you.
Yeah. So Brandi sent to you to do the play. I am told explicitly by both Tom and Charlotte separately, I am not allowed to touch the play. Tom's exact words for me was, your friend is doing the play. You don't touch it.
Yeah.
And
I
was like,
being told to not bother you.
yes.
Like, if I'm going to do this play, I need to do everything myself. And I am not allowed to, because you are Tom's assistant and you are not my assistant.
Yeah. So I am not allowed to touch the play. And I am just kind of finding things to keep myself busy in the office. And I mean, we're probably like end of November at this point.
Yeah.
And Young Gun comes back from the military training.
Yeah.
He leaves. Brandi and I are in charge of family ministry. Brandi and I are in charge of children's ministry. Brandi and I are best friends. He comes back. Brandi and I are not allowed to be friends. I am not in children's. Charlotte has children's. And we haven't done anything with family ministry in a hot minute. And he comes back and he is like, WTF. Like, seriously, what happened?
In the most pastoral way possible.
Yes.
What the Frankfurter is going on?
Like, he pulled me out to the pantry and we sat down and he is like, what happened? And so I tell him the whole thing and he was not happy whatsoever. And so he immediately jumps back into, Pastor Young Gun mode. And him and I and the children's ministry. So I think it was like in his mind, I think he was like, well, I'm just going to have Brandi and Amanda do what they were doing before. But he didn't realize like how busy Brandi was with the play. And so we, other people kind of step in to help and all of this. But him and I and a couple other people, Brandi had some input, but she was just so busy with the play that the like Road to Bethlehem or whatever, the thing that we did with the children's ministry the Christmas before, remember Tom was mad we didn't make it bigger, right? So we have to plan that because we're doing this play like the week before Christmas, right? And so that week in between the play and Christmas, we need something to like, you came to the play and then a few days later you can come to this family ministry like Road to Bethlehem thing. And then a few days later you can come to our Christmas Eve service. And you just have a whole week of just fellowship and Jesus and indoctrination. Like, we're just going to give you, we're not going to do what we do every year where you come to Christmas Eve service and we dump gallons of Kool-Aid on your head. Like, because that's the only time we're going to see you all year, right? Like now we have little things to lead you in. So we're just going to give you little doses of Kool-Aid and hope that you stick at the end, right? And so we planned this whole Road to Bethlehem thing, and it was a whole... we had a Mary and a Joseph that year. We had like a high school girl was Mary, and then we couldn't find a Joseph, so I made my oldest son Ryder be Joseph. And then we had a baby doll as Jesus in the manger. And so you could take your picture with Mary and Joseph and Jesus, and you could go around to all of the stations. And we added stations. Like, we had a lady who like baked a crap ton of cookies. So like apparently we had, snickerdoodles in Jesus's time. So you could go around to the baker and get yourself some Christmas cookies. And we kind of lost sight of the historical accuracy in the name of like trying to fill spaces and have enough things. But yeah, we did this whole thing, and it was going to be great because we did it right after the play. So, I mean, all these hundreds and hundreds of people who came to the play, no one came to our road to Bethlehem. It was all church people.
So fun. I'm just over here just like dying laughing to myself. But like, you're like, come and get your picture taken with Mary and Joseph. And I'm like, it just reminds me of like, I went to a Discovery Center with the kids when they were little in California one time. And I have a picture of me and the girls with Batman next to the Batmobile, right?
Yeah,
At this
exactly.
Discovery
Yeah.
Museum. But I'm taller than Batman.
Yeah. Well, and like
he was a short little dude. Like, and it's just, that's all I can picture is this like
yeah. Well, I mean, Mary was historically accurate, age appropriate, but Joseph was not.
No, and I just, it's like the things that we do of like, it hits a level of like fandom that I just don't understand.
Yeah,
Like,
people are good. Who wouldn't want to come take their picture with Mary and Joseph in a little plastic Jesus? Who wouldn't want to do that? And it was like we were full on convinced. Like, people take their kids to go see Santa at the mall, and they stand in line for hours. Like,
yeah, they're gonna want to stand in line to get their picture taken with baby Jesus.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode was brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.